Thank you so much for being on the programme and for talking to Sky News. You're going to stand down at the next election. Can you explain why?
I think the key issue is that there comes a point which the level of risk becomes too much. I think every MP has to cope with a level of abuse, a lot of it low level, whether it's graffiti, just rude emails, or generally someone shouting at you. That's kind of almost par for the course these days. But once you've had 2 or 3 threats to your life, and then, that was bad enough. And that certainly gave me pause to think after I had a narrow miss with the man that went on to kill David Amos. And then the arson attack was just kind of the last straw. In some ways, as members of Parliament, we sign up to a level of it. But it's also the impact on our families and also our staff. And I think there comes a point you say, enough, it's time to go off and do something else.
Yeah, the impact on your family and your loved ones must be enormous. I mean, they didn't choose to become an MP themselves. Is that something that's been a big factor in your decision?
Yes, I mean, obviously, no MP can really do their job unless their spouse, partner, family are supportive. And when they start to worry constantly about whether you're going to make it home at night or want to make sure that you get picked up from the tube station rather than walking home alone, then you start to see the impact on them. And that's really not fair. And also when they see you going out to do some part of your job in a stab vest, equally, that kind of has an impact on their mental health. And so it's really not fair for them. They didn't sign up to it. And it's a real shame because so much of the job is amazing. So much of their job is to actually get things done, whether it's here in Westminster or in a constituency. And we have to balance the good against the bad, but there comes a point where you just have to say enough.
It's really depressing. And also, it's worth pointing out, these are real-world things that are happening. You had an arson attack at your office. You were targeted by the man who stabbed Sir David Amos MP to death. We all remember the murder of Joe Cox, the stabbing of Stephen Timms. Has it felt quite frightening at times?
I mean, the difficulty is you're never quite sure what's around the corner. I mean, I had 2 run-ins with Muslims Against Crusades. I mean, luckily, the ringleaders of that particular group went on to go to prison for different issues. But when they put up on their website, let Stephen Timms be a pointed warning to you that you're not welcome in, because I was due to have a surgery in the local mosque. That's quite intimidating. Then when they turned up and broke through and then, intimidated me, and I had to be taken into an office for safety until the police arrived. And then they followed up at the next mosque surgery, just doing a demonstration. It does make you think, what's next? And as you say, it was a very narrow miss that the man that went on to kill Sir David came to Finchley first. It was purely fluke that I'd been reshuffled into a different position by Boris, and I ended up being in Westminster, not in Finchley. Otherwise, I suspect I would have been attacked, because he did say he'd come to Finchley armed with the intent to harm. And so that, our offices have often been turned into fortresses now. Our homes are turned into fortresses. But we're at risk when we are walking the street, when we're going to the shop, when we're trying to do so much of our daily constituency work. That's where the risk is the greatest, and you're just never quite sure what's around the corner.
I'm really sorry. It sounds like not a way that anyone should be having to live their life. Has it got worse since the Israel-Hamas war?
Well, in my patch, as you know, it's an amazing patch. It's so diverse. We have so many communities. But I am home to the largest Jewish community of any MP. And whenever things go off in the Middle East, we see a rise in anti-Semitism, but we have never seen it as bad as it is currently. When my constituents tell me that they won't come into central London now because they don't feel safe because of the demonstrations, when colleagues, Jewish colleagues, don't feel that they can wear their kippah on the street anymore, or they're taking off a necklace with a Star of David, then that's not acceptable. I mean, you go down Golders Green Road now, and you just, the whole stretch has either got police or it's got, the CST, or it's got Shomrim, which are the security teams. No other community has to have security to keep them safe from going shopping. No other community has to have security guards outside their places of worship or outside their schools. And this is something we've got to deal with. We should be able to disagree with each other without having to fear for our lives.
Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, has tweeted to say that you're a first-class politician, firstly. She then went on to say that he's been hounded out of office by Islamists is a serious indictment of where we are as a society. She talks about hateful marches, a lack of robust policing, and that she wants to change the law to clamp down on extremism and anti-Semitism. Do you share her assessment?
I'm not quite sure it's quite as stark. I wouldn't want to necessarily paint one community. There are clearly, there is a pattern of behaviour, whether it's Muslims against Crusades or Ali Abibi Ali and the radicalisation. I think that's a very fair point, but I wouldn't want to say that is, the whole community. That's not my experience of the whole Muslim community. The issue is we can increase security around MPs or any public figure, but that's not addressing the point. One of my biggest concerns is, social media especially has a lot to answer for. It allows and it gives free rein to people to be aggressive, to say almost what they want, with very little consequence. If you complain to social media, nothing seems to happen. And that's the bit that we need to address. Don't just keep more and more security, but actually stop people either being radicalised or being given the green light to feel they've got open season on their public servants.
Are you worried about people being put off becoming MPs?
Yes, women MPs get it far worse. I've had, obviously, a run of incidents, some of them very serious. But some of my, female colleagues, the abuse they get, and not just, just the political reason. When colleagues get threatened with rape, that is really not on. And, all abuse, is not on. But some of my female colleagues just get the threats they get is simply unacceptable. And again, rather than just keep giving us more panic buttons or more security, we need to get to the root cause, which I think part of that has to be social media. And they need to take responsibility for what they allow on their platforms and deal with it much more swiftly. And also, generally speaking, on policing, we need to be much more rigorous and visible in arresting those people that overstep the mark. That's one of the things. I know the Met do a good job at arresting people after demonstrations, but people don't see that, and we need that visible consequences of overstepping the mark. And sometimes that's the bit that's missing.